You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. And be sure to smash that like button. Open date for LSU, but Tigers hitting the practice field. Mostly a recovery type week for LSU, working on self. Next week, they really start to get started on the Crimson Tide. Brian Kelly even noted that on Tuesday at practice, LSU had sort of a scrimmage for the young guys. Let the freshmen and some of the younger players who aren't playing very much get out there and get the competitive juices flowing. One big question involved Garrett Dellinger. As we know, the senior left guard exited the game against Texas A&M late in the second quarter. Brian Kelly was asked for an update. Here it is.
Just kind of along those lines with Dellinger, is he feeling okay? Or I know he went down in that
He had
game.
a high ankle sprain, so we're hoping that this week becomes a recovery week for him.
So, high ankle sprain. And look, I'm not an orthopedist. You all know that. But we all watch and follow enough sports. I think when you talk about the high ankle sprain, we all know that's the dreaded thing that lasts and you never really get over it. One thing that is true is sometimes it is sort of positional. If you're a back or receiver with that high ankle, it's much more problematic because of the need to stop and plant and cut and change directions. Trey Harris is a great example of this, right? The Ole Miss wide receiver who they taped him up, they gave him a shot, played the first half. As soon as that shot started to wear off, it got cold on him. He finished the game in street clothes. It's much more difficult. For a lineman, you can kind of immobilize that thing, tape it up, and then you're just sort of playing in a phone booth. I'm not saying it's easy or doable even, but it's easier than it is a quarterback, a running back, a receiver. So we'll see where that leads Garrett Dellinger. Brian Kelly was also asked, and I want to follow up because I do think this is massively impactful and could potentially be massively impactful for the game a week from Saturday. But Brian Kelly was asked, when Dellinger left the game on Saturday against Texas A&M, and Paul Mabenga went in at left guard. Remember, Tyree Adams was the sixth offensive lineman. Basically, if anybody went out other than at center, Tyree Adams was going in. Well, before the Ole Miss game, Tyree Adams injured, had the sports hernia surgery, so he's out. Mabenga is your next guy on the interior. Bo Bordelon's your next guy at tackle. So Kelly was asked, how much did the Dellinger injury impact the run game?
Look, he's the starter, but one guy going down did not affect the running game to the level that it did. You know, certainly, as I mentioned earlier, there are bits and pieces to it. We did not win some individual matchups. We made some mistakes uncharacteristically from some other guys that are on the offensive line. And quite frankly, we made some choices to run into boxes that were not conducive. It was a little bit of all those things.
I'm not disagreeing with Brian Kelly. As a matter of fact, I think he's probably right. I don't think you look at LSU's inability to run the ball in the second half and say, well, Garrett Dellinger went out, and that's why you couldn't run the ball. This is a team through 8 games that really all save 2 has struggled to run. I guess, look, you ran it well against South Alabama. You ran it well against Arkansas. You ran it well in the second half against South Carolina when Caden Durham kind of got going. But by and large, it's been a struggle to run the ball. As we know, LSU's 111th in the country in rush offense. But I will say this, with respect to Garrett Dellinger and the impact, if he's not able to go against Alabama. Garrett Dellinger has played in 41 games over 4 seasons, now into his 4th season. 41 career games. He has started 30 career games. So, yes, I think it is massively impactful if you're replacing Garrett Dellinger, who's a 4-year starter, with a guy like Paul Mabenga, who is seeing his first real action. As a matter of fact, Paul Mabenga on the season has played 92 snaps on the entire season. I mean, Garrett Dellinger has started 30 times. And for what it's worth, and I know we talk about Pro Football Focus here, and I always throw the caveat, Pro Football Focus is a metric. It's not the metric. It's just something to consider. What if I told you that according to Pro Football Focus, Garrett Dellinger is LSU's highest graded offensive lineman? Garrett Dellinger's offensive grade overall is a 76.4. The next highest graded offensive lineman is Will Campbell at 72.7. Miles Frazier's at 66.9. Big drop, Emory Jones at 55.6. Then big drop DJ Chester, 49.7. For what it's worth, Paul Mabenga is at 53.0. So Dellinger at 76.4 overall offensive grade is your highest graded offensive lineman by Pro Football Focus. Oh, by the way, if you're just looking at run grades, Will Campbell 72.9, Dellinger 72.3. They're what and what as your top two. The next highest is Miles Frazier at 60.7. I know that's a lot of numbers. Don't expect you to memorize him. Just understand, if you take nothing else away, Garrett Dellinger, according to Pro Football Focus, is your highest graded lineman, and he and Will Campbell are neck and neck when you're just talking about run blocking grades. So yeah, I do think it's impactful if you don't have Garrett Dellinger out there. And oh, by the way, Paul Mabenga's run blocking grade is a 43, which would be by a mile the lowest among all the starters, provided he starts against Alabama. So I don't know what they're going to do. Oh, look, the great news is from the injury this past Saturday until the game a week from Saturday, you got 14 days. You got 14 days to do nothing but let Garrett Dellinger get rest, treatment, get that thing as healthy and healed as possible to be able to try to go play for 3 hours against Alabama. We'll see if he can. I don't know if he can or if he will. But the other part of it is when you've played in 41 games and you've started 30 times, what's Mike D's old line? Practice is for the unskilled. I don't think I need Garrett Dellinger at practice. I'm not saying he never needs to practice. What I'm telling you is I would rather 80% Garrett Dellinger, who's started 30 times and played in 41 career games in this game against Alabama, than 100% Paul Mabenga with 2 weeks to prepare. So see how close they can get Dellinger to health and if they're able to have him, because I do think it's impactful. And I'll mention this again, and you're probably going to hear me say this a lot between now and the Alabama game. Yes, LSU has struggled to run the football. That's undeniable. They're 111th in the country in rush offense, but Alabama is 68th in rush defense. That is, by far, the worst rush defense you will have faced up into this point in the season. Ole Miss is first in the country in rush defense. A&M's 12th. South Carolina's 16th. Arkansas's 8th. UCLA's 13th. South Carolina's 16th. A&M is 18th. You got 4 of the top 18 run defenses in the country that you've already faced. Again, we had high expectations. I expected LSU's rushing offense to be much better. But they have struggled, but they've also struggled against really good run defenses. This will be, a week from Saturday, statistically, the worst run defense you face. So you got a fairer fight, more on par with what you've been. See if they can take advantage of getting healthy, getting ready to go roll against Alabama in Tiger Stadium a week from Saturday. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.